Hello, my name's Jenny and I'm one of the educational mental health practitioners from With Me in Mind. And this video is to help any parents who might want to understand a bit more about any stress their child might have as a result of their schoolwork, and to think about how parents can help their children to manage this. So what is stress? Stress is tension that's been caused by going through a hard time, and that could be to do with things like family issues, bereavement, friendship fallouts, physical illnesses, exam periods, and of course the current situation with coronavirus and the lockdown. So any situation that causes a big change can be stressful, even if the change is a good thing. Stress usually stops when the situation is resolved or changes. So for example, the family or the friendship issues are sorted out, the illness is treated, the exam period finishes. We've all gone through a huge change to our lifestyles this year, especially children. Many children have been staying home and not going to school, or doing home learning or online lessons, and this will naturally be extremely stressful for many children as it's a totally new experience for them. Some amount of pressure or stress can be really good for us. It can help us to achieve our best. A little bit of stress can help motivate us into taking some action. So for example, if you're a bit stressed about a test coming up, then you're more likely to put some work in to preparing your revision. If you weren't stressed at all, maybe you just wouldn't bother. A good level of stress might leave you feeling a bit tired, but you shouldn't feel overwhelmed or exhausted. Lots of stress can also cause issues like panic attacks or meltdowns. If you feel too stressed, you might not be able to perform the task you're worried about very well. For example, a young person with too much stress might not even turn up to take the test in the first place, or they might feel so overwhelmed that they don't remember any of the answers. These are some symptoms you might notice in young people who are getting too stressed. So you might notice that they talk about having lots of physical symptoms like stomach aches, headaches, feeling sick, or having panic attacks. Younger children especially might not be aware that because they're feeling like this, it might mean that they're worried. So their sleep might be impacted. They might struggle to get to sleep at night or wake up a lot during the night. They might seem very emotional and might become tearful or snappy. They might avoid their schoolwork altogether, or avoid their hobbies, or even avoid talking to their friends. They might spend all their time doing schoolwork, much longer than they would usually do in school. On the other hand, they might be totally avoiding doing their schoolwork. They might be being very hard on themselves, calling themselves names, or saying that they must be stupid. You might notice that they're perfectionists, that everything they do needs to be absolutely 100% right, or they think it's a failure. The problem with this is that stress can really impact on how well children can learn. Stress makes it harder to think clearly, as your body is feeling threatened and goes into survival mode. In survival mode, the rational part of our brains doesn't work as well. Stress makes it harder to ignore background distractions, like the noise of other people in the house. In mode, the senses are heightened because the body is scanning for threats. Stress makes remembering things more difficult. Stress tires your body out, leaving you feel tired. Stress makes it harder to plan your day, prioritise what you need to do. This might mean meeting deadlines much harder. Okay, so how can we help? How can parents help their children to overcome feelings of stress? It's important to start with the basics of well-being, like having a good sleep routine, eating a balanced diet, getting some exercise every day, or having someone supportive who they know they can talk to about their worries, as well as having time for breaks and to relax. Keeping to a structured routine is very calming for children, as they know exactly what to expect from each day, so this can help to reduce stress. Parents can also really help their children just by being there for them, listening to their worries and helping them to manage them. A good thing to do is to encourage the child to have a balanced life, where they have equal amounts of work, rest and play. It can also be really helpful if parents also try to achieve this in their own lives, so that children will learn by example. If the child is struggling with schoolwork and finds it takes up a lot of their time, it might be tempting to tell them to spend less time doing things that they enjoy to make up for it. However, this will likely have the opposite effect, as the child may end up feeling even more stressed and less likely to be able to learn. The child might find it helpful to have regular time for relaxation. You could try and do some relaxing exercises together to help them get used to this. So, for example, you could do breathing exercises, mindfulness exercises, meditation, or some yoga or stretching. If you're not sure, there's lots of videos on YouTube which could have good examples of all of those. Sometimes as adults, it's really natural for us to try and want to fix everything when young people tell us that they're feeling upset or stressed. However, when we do this, we can sometimes make it seem like we're not really listening and like we're dismissing what the young person is saying to us. If you've ever been really upset and someone said to you, "What are you worrying for? It's going to be fine," you'll know it's not always the most helpful response to hear when you're feeling really stressed. Sometimes it's better to validate the child's feelings by saying something like, "I can see this is really stressful for you. Let's think of how we can help to make it easier." Then children are usually a bit more receptive to whatever you're going to say next. You can really have an impact by normalising that it's okay to feel stressed sometimes, and that no one is brilliant at everything all the time. You could do this by sharing some examples of times when you felt really stressed at school and how you managed. So, encouraging children to just have a go is really helpful for stressed or anxious children. And the idea here is that the child sees their learning as something that they have to grow rather than something that's fixed. So if they've received a piece of work back and maybe their mark isn't as good as they hoped it would be, you might encourage them by saying something like, "The point isn't to get it right away." This reassures them that they can get better and that they can take steps to achieve this. So you might want to highlight that any small step towards their target is progress, rather than focusing on the result itself. Another good tip is around providing reassurance to children. So reassurance can be really, really addictive to children, especially if they're a bit anxious or worried. Once they get a bit, they want more and more and more. And this can be really exhausting for the parent, so it's almost better if we can teach children to reassure themselves. So if you think the child seems to be asking or trying to get you to reassure them, what you could try instead is asking questions instead of providing this reassurance. So here are a few examples of how you could do this. Let's say the child says, "Everyone gets this and I don't. I'm the only one who doesn't get this." You could ask, "How do you know that that's true? What evidence have you got that everyone else gets it and you don't?" And encourage them to look for the facts of the situation. The truth is, they can't see inside other people's heads, so there's no way they could know whether everyone knows it and they don't. If the child says something like, "I'm so stupid, I'm an idiot," or calls themselves names in some way, you could ask, "Would you talk to your friend like that?" If you wouldn't say it to a friend, then don't say it to yourself. If the child says something like, "I can't do this maths work at all, I'm definitely going to fail," you could ask, "Has that ever happened before?" Even if it has happened before and they have failed a maths test, you can ask things like, "How did you cope then? What did you learn from it? Who could you ask for help?" Get the child to make their own plan for how they're going to solve this problem. So I hope that was helpful and gave you some ideas of things that can be helpful to manage children's schoolwork stress. If you want any further information or you'd like more help with this subject, you can contact your school's wellbeing lead. Alternatively, resources are available on our website and on our social media pages. Thank you for listening.